You get up and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business. And I have chosen you to preach this evangel.
For all my free market healthcare robbing, stock stealing, retirement fund fucking with niggas. Fuck you little credit card scamming, jewelry stealing, crack selling, liquor store robbing motherfuckers. Shout to the homies, Carnegie, OG, Willie Randolph Hearst, Baruch, Rockefeller, the real Rockefeller, my main bitch Leona, pour out a little Louis the 13th. Scott Rothstein, Jack Abramoff, hold your head. My road shop niggas, let's get this money. I spend my day prepping America overseas. Pension for the workers, nigga please. Embezzlement, etiquette, private settlement. I'm better with Confederate rhetoric from my mansion in Connecticut. Foreclosure that close out the tenement. I twist words like a speech impediment. I hope you got good credit, bitch. If not, better get a new job with benefits. While I play golf with niggas and get cheddar with. New money buys brand new carrots. My old money bought your great grandparents. You got grills in your mouth, I ain't mad at ya. I own every gold mine in South Africa. Thanks, baby, you made me $1 billion. Plus, I own a building for each one of my children's children.
And we are live. This is UCY Radio. This is Voice of Rebellion Radio. And this is your one and only co-host, or one and only host, Chris J. And I have my co-host,
Al Suarez, the one and only Christian, the one and only co-host Al Suarez in the house. How's it going?
And today we are doing probably, I think this shows have been anticipated ever since July 5th when we had that shithead of a caller that called in on that show and tried to quote unquote expose us of nothing really, because all his claims were really didn't even follow any cognitive logic. But it seems this guy, at least, could possibly be connected to InfoWars. And even if he's not, it's worth debunking them, and debunking that kind of truther movement. And these people, these opportunists, these people that are just in this to make money, and, with this fear-mongering and selling the water filters. It seems like, Alex Jones is literally a millionaire off his radio enterprise that he's created, InfoWars, in the last 15 years or so. And, I think that at this point it should be obvious that what he stands for, because, he's been in this business for 20 years. And has he done anything really significant? Not so much. What he has done is that he has you know what the Bohemian Grove is, Al?
Of course.
Well, yeah, it's at this time of the year that elite club, that a bunch of the elites were. He supposedly snuck in. Now you're going to tell me that one of the most guarded events on the planet, probably, that this guy just sneaks in? I doubt it. I think that he probably was invited, and they probably didn't even care that he filmed it because it's like it's been well known that this thing exists for a long time. And number two, it works to their favor because it makes them look creepy and like you don't want to mess with them. It is kind of intimidating when you see the whole mock sacrifice thing they do and all the creepy ritual thing that they do. It's a bit intimidating. But
who snuck in?
Anyways, it's like I don't know if Al, are you hearing it's like when I'm talking I hear it's like a little bit of like a static. No, I don't know.
Who snuck into the Bohemian Grove? Who snuck in?
Alex Jones supposedly snuck in. That's what I'm saying, is that I don't think he snuck in. And it's fitting also because the Bohemian Grove is around this time of the year usually. And he supposedly snuck in 15 years ago in 2000 and made us a documentary or whatever. But it's like I don't really think he snuck in, for one. Number two is that in his I want to mention something. In his 20 years of radio broadcasting, he's mentioned Israel very few times. And I think only one time because he was confronted about it, he actually mentions Israel and he says that the government's corrupt there, but he never mentions anything about the corruption But you know what he does mention? Imaginary communists that are, like it was in McCarthyist fear. He mentions Muslims, he mentions Mexicans in that time, but he never does mention Israel. And I think that's really telling to his character.
Yeah, why don't we talk also about the two guests that we spoke with earlier today. We want to mention...
It was like 2 hours ago, Al.
Yeah,
we interviewed on our old radio station. It used to be our main platform. It's still kind of a side platform for Voice of Rebellion Radio, Stable Radio. We interviewed Eduardo Guzman and Rafael McNamara, like the former Secretary of State under Kennedy, but I don't think he's related to that guy. But McNamara, he spent 5 years in prison after a conspiracy charge, and I'm not gonna talk about it too much on this show because we did a show about it, and I'll just tell people to go to Blog Talk Radio, go look up Stable Radio, and that's gonna be the last show we did, which was earlier today. And I think we were starting. It seems like we were clicking. We're starting to get to that point where we're having a good conversation with a guest, but we only had 45 minutes to do an interview. It's like we should have just. I don't know. I feel like we should have gave them the phone number. And then for this show, I don't even know it wouldn't be really exactly related. Just at some point, they could call in maybe towards the end of the show or something. But
we want to stay on topic. And today's
business is business here, and we gotta. And what I mean by that is that we have to because it's kind of. I think that people like Alex Jones, we need to put our stance out there. That he does not represent us. I know that he's been He's been painted out, unfortunately, like the king of conspiracies. Like this guy is no be-all of conspiracies, and if you don't agree with him, it's and a lot of truthers rely just on InfoWars for their information. They don't question anything that Alex Jones says. Some of the stuff's not even factual, and then it has an agenda. It's slanted towards Alex Jones' agenda and towards what looks to be Alex Jones' master. Alex Jones does not. It looks like he's a phony. Alex Jones is on FM radio stations all throughout the country. I don't know. It's like maybe it's possible to be a real and still get on FM radio shows all across the country. Even in Florida, I believe he has a syndicate in Jacksonville. So you're going to tell me that
commercials on CNN, and again, the topic of the show, unlike the show we had earlier, is differentiating the realists from the theorists. So the realists analyze based on facts. The theorists tend to cherry pick and do a lazy job in researching the facts that they're presenting, such as we've seen in the case of InfoWars. They felt intimidated by our new program on UCY, and I'm pretty sure they sent the so-called Dave Rivera to call in, try to expose us. So out of a reaction to that, we did a parody video. We mentioned on the last program. We didn't mention it on the Return to Blog Talk Radio program today because it was off topic. But again, here on UCY, we're challenging any of them to call into the program. You're free to put the number out, Chris.
Yeah, number out for this show is 718-717-8296. 717-8290. 718-717-8296. I think the first Skype being on the radio show earlier and then having to change over to this station in the same day. I don't know. It's like I have a hard time adjusting it, because it was just an hour and 45 minutes. It was pretty cool though, that interview we just did. But talking about, I want to talk about also about Alex Jones. What's one of the most striking things about Alex Jones to me is that he almost refuses to call the government for what they are. He does not really talk about the corporate and state merger of power. He calls it communism, which it's not by any definition communism. Maybe close to Stalinism, if anything. But, it's not, what it is by definition is corporate fascism is what the United States government is. But he rarely calls the United States government fascist. He always says communist, or, he says that Nazism is a form of socialism, which was not true because, number one, I'll point out that, that they actually persecuted socialists in Germany during the Hitler years, and that the National Socialist Party, they dropped the word socialist in 1935 from the name. So it was just called the Nationalist Party of Germany.
Right.
But, Alex Jones does not call the government out for what they are. He does not call them out for Zionist sellouts like a lot of them are, or the fact that there are 15 dual Israeli senators. It's 15% of our Senate have a dual Israeli citizenship, including the one of them that's trying to be president and supposedly represents us, the left, supposedly, Bernie Sanders. He has a dual Israeli citizenship.
Also derived from the Hitler-Stalin Pact. So the Stalinists at that time, in 1939, were changing the propaganda to a more pro-Nazi kind of conciliatory so-called communists coming out and in support of Nazis during the pact between Hitler and Stalin before they split up. Commenced. So, they say that Stalinism is Nazism. I mean, they're both totalitarian. There's some ideological similarities in fusion and have revised history. And one of the prime examples of that is Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, not only does he change history on some events, Alex Jones, what the main thing, he does is that he has everybody in this InfoWars spirit. He doesn't give credit to where credit's due. When I'm talking about, what I mean by that is that he does not talk about the leaders that have not sold out. He does not talk about, he doesn't even talk about outside the United States, it seems like. He's very national focused, but that's bad because he does not show, the figures overseas that have not sold out. And he only goes to international means, comparing our country to another country when it specifically fits, what he's talking about. But he never talks, for example, the only times I've heard him talk about foreign heads of state are usually in a bad way, like when the North Korean leader Kim Jong-il died.
Yeah.
That's when he mentions any foreign leader, and he picks that one. And, of course, he's talking about how but he uses just typical United States government propaganda against North Korea too. He doesn't even, differentiate on that. It just sounds like any other news anchor speaking. Goes to Venezuela, starts talking about Venezuela. He compares Hugo Chavez to Adolf Hitler, which is the most absurd comparison I've ever heard him make. I think
we talked about
in that one
program earlier that the gun bans. In Germany, the gun ban was lifted in 1938, and so all German citizens, except for Jews, could then access guns. But you have the common rhetoric from Jones is, well, Hitler took the guns, and such took the guns, and it's completely historically inaccurate and can easily be debunked. But that's very typical of the theorists that they don't do their homework.
Well, it's like and by saying that, it's not we're saying that. It's like we are 100% support of gun rights. Just to make that clear, we're not. We stand on. We have, I guess, a similar position. Well, not really, because Jones, has a position from, that you think of a communist coming to take his guns. We are against the fascists, against the oligarchs. That we need to rise up. We need the workers to be armed. We have a different standpoint of gun rights, but we still believe in the same amount of freedom of guns. We believe that people should be able to, it's an essential right, to be armed to the same level as the government. I mean, it does say in the Second Amendment, and that seems to be a universal human right. But
I said, Chris, can you hear me?
I was like, why we counter, Alex Jones on is that he does not give credit, because remember, this guy has been put almost like a representative of all truthers. Like this guy, when he starts speaking, on the mainstream media or whatever, it's the reason why they let him specifically go on the mainstream media. There are other very prominent truthers out there that that do not act like a clown like Alex Jones, and have quite a big following on the internet. However, the thing is that they picked that one. The mainstream media even had commercials at one point because, the reason that is because that he's a clown, and when Americans see him in their minds, they think that of the tinfoil hatted conspiracy theorist, and that we base nothing on facts but just on stuff that people theorized or on the internet. But we are purely facts. I mean, I'll admit we're not 100% accurate on everything. I don't think any person could be 100% accurate. We're not going to say we're perfect, but I'm going to say that we're going to be, we're going to try to be our best. Alex Jones did not try to be super factual.
Chris, can you hear me all right?
It's still quiet, but it's not cutting out.
I'm writing you on Skype, though. You're ignoring what I'm writing you. I'm trying to write to you what I'm trying to say so you can repeat it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, that's the one thing, is that Jones, Alex Jones, when it comes to this recent event by police of killing unarmed black youth and stuff, it seems that his stance, I'm not going to call Alex Jones blatantly a racist, but it seems like it's tilted towards a kind of a racist stance, that the rioters in Ferguson or Baltimore are the ones at fault, not the police, not the system for causing a system where they want to riot, because that's the only option. That's the only way they get heard. Look at the freaking L.A. riots. That was the only way that Rodney King, those police, got indicted, because they rioted. I'm sorry to say, but sometimes, you have to go to violent tactics, And also, I'll point out another thing is that in Philly, or not Philly, in Baltimore, that same city where people were blaming the rioters, in that same city, Wells Fargo destroyed 1,000 abandoned homes that had been foreclosed on, destroyed them, bulldozed them, and nobody said that was a damage of private property. That's 1,000 freaking homes. 1,000 homes worth at what, $100,000 each?
Chris,
that's $100 million worth of property destruction. That's comparable to a tornado or something.
Chris.
Yeah.
Almost on a daily basis, Jones refers to Mexicans as dirty Mexican commies. How is that not racist? You're saying that Jones is slightly racist? He's fully racist.
I don't think he's ever said has he ever said dirty Mexican commie in that same?
I show you videos several times.
I thought he always said maybe like that, dirty illegal immigrants or something like that. But I never knew he said dirty Mexican commie literally directly like that.
No, listen, his wife speaks Spanish apparently, right? So he said that he traveled to Mexico once with his wife, and that she heard on the radio that all the Mexicans want to invade the United States. I doubt that her Spanish is very well, because they don't say those type of things all the time on the radio in Mexico. But he's convinced that all the Mexicans want to invade Texas, want to invade the United States, these dirty Mexicans. And then he said he's descended from the Alamo, the survivors of the Alamo, and that he has a bias against Mexicans. That's why in that parody video I put all those things in there. Jones is known for that. So yeah, he's never said the N-word. You can't say he's racist against blacks, but certainly Mexicans. And he's not very concerned about police brutality against blacks. If it's against whites, he's up in arms. So you see Jones's bias there as well.
Well, he says that he's, he says that he's, one that he descends right from the forefathers of the Texas Revolution, but that's even one of the things he said in the CNN video. He was talking about how Santa Anna went to take his ancestors' guns away, and that and that was one of the things he used. But and that's the one thing that the ones, and also I want to put out there, but is that Jesse Ventura is a counterexample. People say, well, if Alex Jones is fake, what about Jesse Ventura? He's kind of like the same level, but does Jesse Ventura act like a clown? No. Seems to lay out the facts in a very
shape or form
orderly manner.
Same level. He lives half the year in Mexico. He adores Mexico. That's what I'm trying to tell you. He's the antithesis of Jones on this issue. He's literally
And
arguing
also, I
with
want to
Jones.
point out something is
He's
that
literally
Jo-
arguing
is
with
that
Jones. Okay, the
Vent-
bad connection and
Ventura.
interrupting. I said that he literally argued with Jones on his program about Mexicans because in defense of them, like he's given examples of like how their real estate laws are better, stuff like that, and then Jones took offense and was asking Jesse Ventura why do you live half the year in Mexico? And I don't think Jesse Ventura ever came back on his program after that. So you have other libertarians. Jesse Ventura is more of a left libertarian, more of a real type, not like Jones. That come on his program and then he argues with them.
Well, I'll point. Jones is not even a libertarian, I don't think, because the guy supports. He's almost just another like splinter wing of the Republican Party because the guy supports Rand Paul, and Rand Paul, if you don't know, he supports higher militarization of the United States. He supports Israel staunchly. He believes that troops should be used to defend Israel, just like any other politician. And Alex Jones still supports Rand Paul to this day. I don't know what. I don't even know what could be the question anymore. Really, and also, Jesse Ventura. He's not. Look, is that I don't think he's not really endorsing any candidate. I think that he might be a little bit. I saw stuff about him and Sanders, and that he seems to be generally supportive of him. I think he's mistaken on Sanders. However, he's not going to take 100% support for any candidate because he eventually is going to stand up for himself and actually run himself. It's actually going to happen. He's going to be probably as a libertarian candidate
for a local position. He failed. He ran as a Republican like 20 years ago.
Alex Jones is going to be a congressman. He ran for Congress, but he didn't get very far at all. But also, I want to point out something about Alex Jones. Alex Jones, he seems to have a problem with with Hispanics, not just New Mexicans. I mean, he kind of lumps them all together, and it's like that's why I think that's his deal with Fidel and Hugo Chavez. Part of it is because they're Hispanic, and to him that's grouped in. I mean, it's clear that he's racist against Hispanics. It's like he doesn't even when he's saying completely unfactual stuff, and he's talking about how he's biased against because it's about a war that happened 170 years ago where his family was in, and it was a whole different matter. People run away, and then he's supposed to be on the truther thing. He's supposed to know that those Mexicans that are coming to the United States, they're running from drug cartels that the United States funds. People like Al Chapo that just escaped from prison are funded by the DEA, by the United States,
right,
and make Mexico a hellhole where immigrants have to run to the United States because it's so bad there, especially North Mexico. Maybe South Mexico might be. Well, I think that's where Ventura lives anyways. He lives in the safe part. He doesn't live in Guadalajara. That's where it's rough up there, near the border, where they have the drug cartels have kind of a free domain up there because they're right by their funding source, and they just traffic drugs really easy across the border at the United States help. These drugs don't sneak them in really. It's more like a deal they have with the United States. And if you look in the 80s, the United States not only funded the Mexican drug cartels, they funded all parts of the drug trade, all the way from down where the drugs are assembled.
Look at the recent history with Eric Holder got caught in the Fast and Furious program giving money getting guns to the cartel. Right then he should have stepped down. He stepped down later after a few other scandals. But even in recent history, stuff like that's going on.
It's not. Yeah, and people would be fooled that it ended in the 1980s. It's right the same strength, just a little bit more secretive. It's really, and to think that it started then, hell no. It started way back, right before Vietnam. Vietnam, there was documented cases where people were putting opium in the supposed caskets of dead soldiers.
The 1930s is when weed was first made illegal, discriminating against Mexicans. So the drug war really started in the 1930s in this country.
Yeah. And who knows when? And it probably was right around the same time that our government began, getting involved in the illegal drug trade.
Yeah, they have prohibition, and then they had the legalization of.
It goes hand in hand.
Yeah, that's how the mob works as well during prohibition. Yeah.
And the mob. I mean, the mob has been shown. It's like even though at times they've is, at times they've kind of took stands against the government, and more of the time it seems like they've been working with the government. I mean, I think really it's most the whole. It seems like a lot of the mafia history was like that, and even when they weren't, made directly, working with the government, they were working towards the government propaganda about labor unions because of the few that they infiltrated, or the reason that gave any validity to the stuff that the politicians said about the labor unions back in the day. But Alex Jones, another thing I want to say is that a lot of the stuff is just false. I mean, with it's really like some of the stuff that he said is just plain out doesn't have any really, like I said, like with the Venezuela gun ban, there was no gun ban in Venezuela. They have armed militias there. That's more. That's more
gangs, but then they armed the people's militias. So everything's in context there.
And also I want to. It's like I want to say is that it's. When he says that Chavez took the guns or whatever down there, is that he's not realizing that there's more lenient gun laws there than here in the United States, really, because we're not allowed to have militias. If they find out we have militias, they immediately start cracking down.
If you're in the Midwest and the South, it's much more easier. I mean, they have like soft gun laws in some northern states for hunting, but yes, militias in northern states, there tend to be hostilities and laws against their rights there.
Well, yeah, it's like, of course, there's some states where, there's some states where almost like the gun confiscations almost started, really. Like in Connecticut, they're skirting past laws and stuff to take people's guns away up in some of those Northeast states. I really think that, I think that, yeah, down here in the South, maybe it'll be a little bit later on, but I think eventually they'll take the guns away because when they realize that the working class may revolt when it happen. Until that point, probably not. But it's because that's what they're worried about is the working class arming themselves, or what they're seeing now, blacks arming themselves, minorities arming themselves against the systematic racism or against the spawns of systematic racism. And what I mean by that is groups that are let wild, like the skinheads that you see recently in demonstrations, and they are shaking hands with police and stuff, and I don't blame minorities arming themselves because these people are freaking insane. These KKK and stuff. I mean, then they recently said that they have to kill 10,000 black people to keep up the Bible or whatever.
No, they said that what was done in Charleston was commanded by the Bible. So this is equivalent of the American ISIS, as far as I'm concerned, to make that type of justification for killing people in churches.
And I really would love to. Well, I wouldn't love to see, but I would like this. I would like to. You know what I'd like to do? I wish that there were just people that were completely, did not know, they're ignorant of what happened. So I could just tell them, hey, did you hear about that black guy that went into a church with 9 white folk and killed them all, and one of them was a state representative? And I would like to see their reaction compared to the reactions about this white guy killing 9 black people, and just compare it, just to see what their reaction would be. I don't think it'd be the same.
It depends on the person.
They'd be like, oh, did it? Huh?
It depends on the person, but you have a good point.
I think a lot of people it would not be the same, but Alex, and another thing is that Alex Jones pretends that racism does not exist in this country, and that's not being real. It's like you can deny it all you want and pretend to live in La La Land, but that's what it's like. It's like, sure, the media race baits to cause tension, but to act like there's no racism in this country is not being realistic, and we need to address the stuff. We can't address that in an unrealistic manner like he wants to, and pretend that anybody claims that there's racism in this country is bad. One tactic that he's done before at the Ferguson protest, he was claiming that communists were infiltrating the Ferguson protest, and which the communists were probably people like me and Al. That's the thing that's funny.
Anarchists as well, but you had the new waves, and they were coming in and doing vandalism, and I think it was legitimate protests from locals, and then they had these outsiders come in The media was focused on a minority of the protesters, So there was a lot of misinformation going on in Ferguson at that time.
And and then Baltimore, they're using. He was practically going along with Fox News, but Fox News did the absolute best blunder of the Baltimore coverage, because they show a picture of what looks to be, they said, a street in Baltimore, and it's all destroyed, on fire, and then it's really the pictures from Venezuela caused by right-wing fascists that the United States government funded and that Fox supported before and still support. So that's the ironic thing.
Or using images from other countries and claiming that it's there. Yeah.
No, you know what would be Alex Jones' next thing is that, Alex Jones would probably, because of course that he's racist leaning, he'd probably saying that the black, because he always warns about, he tries to say, oh look, the Black Panthers back, like it's a bad thing. He'd probably show pictures of like African warlords and be like, look at this violent protesters in Baltimore or whatever. That'd be next by Alex Jones. I don't know. Alex Jones, I'd be so shocked if he's still around in 5 years, still in this radio thing. Because I see that viewership is declining.
Rush Limbaugh,
I don't see.
Rush Limbaugh said that he'd leave the country. He'd go to Costa Rica if Obamacare was passed. And then he found out there's actual public health care in Costa Rica, too, so he decided to stay. But he lost some legitimacy there. He lost some legitimacy attacking women on the air. He's done a lot of stuff, but he's still somehow on the air, like using profanity, attacking women. He lost some of his sponsors, but he's still on the air. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jones has a bunch of blunders like that and is still on the air, because there's some fans, like Cult Personality, that beyond all logic, they'll keep supporting that host, unfortunately.
Well, I think that that's hilarious, because the people, the people that they don't even realize that Obamacare actually was roped by pharmaceutical companies to get them more money. It was like almost like it was false social reform. Right. And really, we're far away from actually having a real public health care system like they have in Russia or in having not even Canada, but Venezuela, real socialist countries.
Listen,
Russia's not a socialist country, obviously. I'm saying.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're making me think right now of the altercation between O'Mara, however his name's pronounced, and Sanders, and the Black Lives Matter activists that walked into their.
It was O'Malley. Speeches. O'Malley, not O'Meara.
Yeah. So.
The former. That's it's ironic. That's actually the former.
Can I get my point
governor of Maryland.
And then you can say whatever you want. I don't even know how to pronounce his name right now. You said it's O'Mara?
O'Malley.
O'Malley.
It's an Irish.
O'Malley responded to the protesters when they were saying, we don't want reform, we want real change. He responded by saying, I agree with that, and then later on saying, and we should do such and such reform. So it's like these guys are so reformist and contradictory, and they'll pretend that they agree with you, and they don't,
Yeah. And O'Malley, I think, ironically, he was like, I think he was the former governor of Maryland, I think. Or no, was he? He's one of those Northeast states, I think. He was the former governor. But I think it would be really ironic if he was the former governor of Maryland and saying that, because, that's where the Baltimore...
It's south. It's north of the Mason-Dixon line is Pennsylvania. So when you pass Pennsylvania, then you're north.
That's not the Mason-Dixon line. Mason-Dixon line's all the way down to Kentucky and Virginia. That's the Mason-Dixon line. Once over past that was the north.
Well, Pennsylvania borders Virginia. Part of Pennsylvania was where the Mason-Dixon line was, too.
Actually, well, yeah. I think... I don't know, because I'm thinking, because directly north of Virginia is the District of Columbia, but that's only a small area. I don't know.
Yeah, because Maryland borders Virginia, but so does Pennsylvania.
But anyways, I was saying he's one of those Northeast states, is what I was saying. I think it's the governor of Maryland or Pennsylvania, one of those two. And I don't keep track with these corporate sellout politicians all that much, especially when they used to be governor. They're not. It wasn't even governor now. Is why I know what O'Malley is, and we all know what Sanders is. Current senator, supposedly represent. Again, another misrepresentation. Alex Jones represents all truthers, just like Bernie Sanders represents all the left, the supposed true left. You know, I see people that are even on our friends list now. You know, they're supposed to be, you know, supposedly radical. I'm not going to state any names, but I think you know one person that just went all out on the Sanders bandwagon campaign, saying, "Oh, look, he's going to win." You know, it's like I say, you know, by the fact that Sanders might actually win the campaign, doesn't that tell you, that there's something up with Sanders, that this guy is not a real candidate, or is not a real socialist, because they wouldn't let a guy like him win. It doesn't matter who wins, because it's rigged, really, and it's like nobody's elected. People are selected as president. Yeah. And anyways, I do realize that I haven't put up the number since the beginning of the show, and it's around 9:40 Eastern time, and we already have been we already have went right now. For us, that means we already went an hour and 20-ish minutes so far broadcasting. Hour and 25 minutes, that would be, if it's actually 9:40. I think it's a few minutes before. So we went about an hour and 20 minutes already today on this marathon of broadcasting. It wasn't like it was even early in the day before. It was just a little bit before. But so I hope somebody calls in 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296. You know, it's like it's like we've literally talked 40 minutes just about one guy, Alex Jones. You know, he's not even. But you know, and it's like, and we just talked about the conspiracy theorist and the king of conspiracies, the Zionist defender. You know, he's like a Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck is also sometimes put into the truth movement, which I really find absolutely absurd. Because Glenn Beck used to work on Fox. You know, Alex Jones is connected to CNN. You know, but there's also another one. You know, but I just want to talk about the general thing that's wrong with, you know, people like him. Also, is that he confuses people ideologically, has them all spun. You know, and it doesn't. And people say, well, you know, ideology is not that important. But if you don't have a formed ideology, I think in politics, you become clay. Because if you just, because you see what the people, you see that they're called the New Wave Anarchists. Those are the people that don't have any ideology whatsoever. You know, they're just general activists. And you see what happens to them. They get used sometimes. Sometimes they're used by infiltrators, like what happened at Occupy with Al. You know, and the people without any ideology, they become clay. It's like but you know, it's not only that. It's just that Alex Jones has people worried about the wrong, you know, enemy, just the wrong enemy. He has people worried about he has people worried about socialists and communists. But it's fascism. Fascism is here. It is here, and it's the thing to it's by our government by definition is that. And we're back. We're cut off for a second. What happened now?
Well, I forgot that when the call comes in, I have to add them to the group call. So I picked up the call and told them call back again because I brought you in a different way. So
okay, yeah, you have to add them to the group call. Yeah.
Yeah, I told a couple friends to call.
Was it a regular number or was it a Skype caller?
No, it was a phone number.
I really hope it's not you know who. Well, it would be pretty funny.
I just tell you, I told a couple of friends to call in, so I don't think it's going to be anybody hostile, but we're prepared for anything, so we'll see.
Well, it's like I think a debate would actually get me refired up. I mean, it's like almost like after 40 minutes of doing this little monologue about Alex Jones, you know, and the thing about Alex Jones that I want to point out is that, you know, one last thing is that he does not give credit to people that actually, you know, leaders that have not sold out to the international banks. Or he's not talking about Iceland, what they did. He's not talking about Chavez. Or he talked badly about Chavez. He talks. He also does not talk about Putin's great stand against the international bankers recently.
We have the
or does he
now? It's Eduardo. How's it going, Eduardo?
Hi, I'm doing fine, thanks.
Thanks for calling in again. This topic today, in case you didn't see the link, is the conspiracy realist versus conspiracy theorist, and I think we've talked about that a little bit. The differences between realists, which we tend to be, and theorists. What's your take on that?
I think that with theorists, it's just more about postulations that some may or may not be based on fact, whereas realists try to run a finer tooth comb through those facts and just gather things from evidence as opposed to just speculating.
Speculation is a good term, or cherry picking. Chris, what do you want to add anything?
Oh yeah, no, it's Alex Jones again. He cherry picks the stuff. I mean, where is he talking about the? For example, I'll put an example right here. He'll talk about what's the Greece thing about the Syriza people that have rejected international bankers so far. But does he talk about the fact that Syriza is a socialist party? No. He probably would even say, he would probably make a blatant lie and call them anti-communist because he believes that the international bankers are communist by some absurd, it's not really, I don't think that he's absurd and actually believes that. I think that's his agenda, because that's his role. That's why he's allowed to be that big. He's allowed to be that the level he is, go on mainstream media and stuff, because he's the representative of all truthers. And, acting crazy even puts a bad image of people like us to Americans. That's why you don't see Jesse Ventura on the mainstream media barely, not nearly as much as you see Alex Jones. And you see some people never get on the mainstream media, even though they're way up there, like Luke Radowski. I think that he's legit, the guy from We Are Change. But anyways, yeah, that's what I have to say about it.
Eduardo, what's your take on Jones?
I think Jones is a sensationalist at best. He's doing exactly what it's expected of him to do. He's just mostly an attention monger, although sometimes he does prove points. But mostly, like I said, he's just, sensationalist above anything else.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is that he has to put a couple good points in there, because the thing is that he has to get people that are kind of like-minded like us, people that would actually, realize the mainstream media is bullshit at this point and want to find the truth about stuff politically.
In the
and then he, draws them in with stuff like that. He talks about 9/11, and other things that are real, real conspiracies. But then he starts going into other stuff and starts tainting their mind, again, with anti-communist, McCarthyist rhetoric in there. Starts tainting their mind with also another thing is that he completely never talks about one of the biggest conspiracies is how much control Israel has over our foreign policy, over our, country these days. They have such an influence with AIPAC. He never talks about that kind of stuff, because that's not his role. And his role is to turn, potential dissidents into they're just another rebranded, follower. They're not followers of the mainstream media.
Oh, yeah,
remember
when Alex Jones was talking
media.
When Alex Jones was talking about when the Ferguson riots happened, he suddenly turned into reverse racism, race baiter.
Yeah, I know what you're saying is that, Alex Jones pretends like if you state that racism exists, you're reverse racist by some fact. I didn't say that all white people were racist. It's not like the people that were supportive of the Ferguson protests were saying that. They were saying that there's some institutional levels of racism in the United States government. Definitely a fact. And also that there's racist elements as seen by the skinheads that were demonstrating this weekend in the United States. And also the fact that those people that are violent are let a free pass by the government. They're shaking hands with the police. While people like us that actually stand for something good, stand for equality, when we protest, we get pepper sprayed. We get hauled to jail because we are naturally a threat to the system as they see us. The skinheads, they're not a threat to the system. In fact, they almost, they are another wing of the system in a way because they intimidate, people that might be a threat to the system. So,
it's three different things they try to do. First, they try to character assassinate you, so they defame you, and then they try to get dirt on you and blackmail you. In the last resort, it's taking you out. I mean, it's the same old tactics they've always done.
Yeah, and they did that to many historical figures
who are lower key. I mean, they're just made example of. Like, I think what happened to me was more than anything a scare tactic. Quite a big slap on the wrist, if you ask me.
And you look at Kennedy. I mean, Kennedy couldn't be bought off. He was already known as a womanizer, so he couldn't be blackmailed. And he made a lot of enemies early on. Bankers, military guys. I mean, there was no way they're going to let him live.
Exactly.
I know.
Or let's look at MLK, for example. MLK, kind of the same deal. I mean, he just by his total, integrity, he had such a moral background that there's no way a person like him could be bought off. Okay, let's try to character assassinate him. He couldn't because even when they were going to when they brought that he cheated on his wife, it didn't do anything. He still had the same amount of support, and it didn't even ruin his relationship with his wife. So guess what? On April 4th, 1968, it was not a lone gunman that took him out. It was the government, as they admitted in 1999.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Well, going back to conspiracies, they found this quote by J. Edgar Hoover that says, "The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists."
Right, and the irony of ironies is that Hoover refused to go out to the mob because mobs had pictures of him with his gay lover. I mean, he was blackmailed himself. He blackmailed everybody. Kennedy, MLK. He told MLK, if you accept that Nobel Peace Prize, I'm going to expose you cheated on your wife. I got a tape of you with your lover. So he got dirt on everybody, but there were people that got dirt on him in the end as well. It didn't come out till after he died publicly that he had been gay, which was a huge scandal for those times.
Yeah. Back then, it would have been not just a career killer, but it would have been permanent. It would have permanently demonized his image.
It was considered up to the 1970s a psychological disorder to be gay. And Hoover died in the late 60s, early 70s. So, I mean, it would have been a huge
around that same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but back then it was still something they could put you away for.
Yeah, they could claim.
Well, yeah, if it was a psychological problem, what they defined it as. So, of course, Edgar Hoover wouldn't have been put away or thrown in jail, of course, or maybe he wouldn't even have, but he definitely would have lost his image as this, almost like the defender of America. Like at the time, Edgar Hoover was the guy that, it's like his his staunch devotion to being against communists to saving America from a communist subversion. That was the image of him in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, he didn't go
Edgar Hoover
after the communists, and Bobby Kennedy was pressuring him to go after the mob's infiltration of the Union, and he refused. We know the real reason why now. Also, because of the dirt that they had on him. And the mob was experts at blackmail. It wasn't just the government.
Yeah, I mean, and there was nobody surprised when Bobby got popped,
And Bobby was out Cesar Chavez at that time, and the revolution that was going on in the western United States. He kind of redeemed himself after his brother died and moved more to the left. I mean, there was a time that he was with MacArthur, Bobby Kennedy. But after his brother died, he moved more to the left and realized the same people that went after his brother were the same people that wanted to extend the Cold War and all that.
Yeah, I mean, because the Cold War, like I said, was a money-making enterprise.
The Cold War, launched the largest arms race in the history of the planet. So, of course, the Cold War, made a lot of money, and also,
why do they think they want to start a new one?
Well, they're starting up in Ukraine,
Yeah.
It's all. I don't even think you could call it starting up a new one. It is a new one. Cold War started again. It's Cold War II now. It's Russia. I mean, what's the last time that you've heard anything good about Russia said on the news? It's been a while. Because right now at this point, the news has put them in the same enemies category as they put Iran and North Korea. I mean, it sounds like the same kind of rhetoric. So, let me make it clear that I have no problem with all three of them, even North Korea.
I mean, right. They have problems of their own. Yes, that's true. But there is a big elephant in the room, and that's called the United States.
Right. The point is, before you start pointing the stick at other nations, look at the, what's going on here at home. So there's a lot of hypocrisy going on.
Yeah, because people don't mind pointing out the oppression, the tyranny, and the corruption in other countries at all. Yet they fail to look at their own in any sort of objective way.
Well, there's definitely, North Korea is not perfect, of course, and it's like, and that's why, and that's why the United States points their finger at them, because it's like, hey, well, at least we're not them, but then they pretend like there's no oppression in this country, and also, like in Russia, it's made up, a lot of the oppression. I mean, that's supposedly existing there, and they're not telling the full side of things. They're not telling about, like, for example, when that Pussy Riot got arrested for 3 years or spent time. They didn't do nothing to get there. They were vandals. I mean, they were eventually used as a front group by the United States. I mean, they were a big piece of the United States' ideological battle with Russia. So they're not innocent, and you'll never catch me supporting them.
Are you talking about the Pussy Riot?
Well, back then the Cold War was over ideology. I mean, they're going to have to pick some new cause
about the ideological battle. Or actually, I mean the battle of the. Okay, I guess the better word would be is that the battle of saying the information battle. I guess is what.
Are you talking? Chris, can you hear me? Were you talking about the Pussy Riot group in Russia? Is that what you're talking about?
That's one example of the United States fabricating a supposed terrible act of tyranny by Russia against its own people or whatever, trying to make it seem like, well, look, Russia's back to the days of Stalin or whatever, They almost went down that element.
Yeah, and also, on the Russian side of things, there's elements in the Russian government that they think that they're the last stronghold of traditionalism and conservative ideology compared to, quote-unquote, the decadent Europe and the West. That's why they went the other way when it came to some human rights issues like same-sex marriages and things like that they thought those are just Western things that they want to impose on us.
I don't see Russia exiling whole swaths of their population like they did in the time of Stalin, like with the Tatars in the Crimea. I mean, the Ukrainian minority in the Crimea are free to stay there as they're part of Russia. And if you look at Italy, for example, they're going after the Roma gypsies there, and exiling people and refugees and sending them to detention centers. I mean, I don't see stuff like that going on in Russia. So they're talking about decadent Europe. I mean, it's just complete hypocrisy.
And also, I want to point out the fact is that, again, I pointed out many times is that Russia is not oppressing gay people like people are claiming. I mean, there's groups in Russia that are very right-wing, but they're not connected to the government. Just like we have our own Westboro Baptist Church or whatever, they have the super right factions of the Orthodox Church there that, yes, are kind of they do persecute gays. However, the Russian government made the law banning gay parades because it was a problem. It just every time they happened, you had these assholes come over and then, just ended up in a big fight that the police always had to break up. And also, half the time, another thing I want to point out is that it was not good on gays weren't innocent in that country because they weren't even from that country. Sometimes they came specifically from Europe as just cause havoc. They weren't even supportive of really gay rights. It was just that they were people coming from Europe, hellraisers pretty much that came to Russia that didn't like Russia. But and also another thing is that the law they passed wasn't targeted at gays. I mean, it was targeted at
pedophiles.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing is that the fact that they don't have same-sex marriage. I mean, look, a lot of countries don't have that, and number two is that a lot. I don't think a lot of the. I mean, it's really a pressure not to have it. I mean, yes, it's good to have it. I would say to have to have them at the same equal stance, but I don't think it has all the.
Right,
For one
but
thing, like in this country, half of the reason why people wanted, why it was so important for to have same-sex marriage is because of all the economic ramifications. Because insurance and all that kind of stuff. Russia, there's not really that much
yeah,
economic
but also
tie-ins to
that
marriage.
brings me to the second course is that marriage shouldn't even be a government issue at all, at all.
That's what I think. That's what I think. It's kind of funny. I was saying that during that whole issue. I don't even think that really it's a government thing at all. It's kind of ridiculous that the government steps into the point they do in the United States with marriage for anybody. I mean, think about it, that you have to ask the government to get the permission to get married, and that's what a marriage license says, just like all the millions of ridiculous
then
things you have
that's
to
not
ask
a right
permission for. And think about all the other
Yeah,
stuff you have to. I mean, it's not just it seems like when you think about what a license means you have to ask the government to do that activity, marriage, or there's a million
yeah,
things that I
they
just find
take it right
ridiculous.
away and sell it back to you. That's what they do. They take it right away and sell them back to you. That's what licensing is.
Yeah, pretty much. And you have to ask, and if they don't really, if there's a reason why, it's not convenient for them, for you to have that right. For example, people, especially with, are trying to get guns or whatever. Well, then they can they can say no,
carry.
and that's what it is. They get to be selective who gets what rights with licensing of everything. I mean, if you're really on their shit list, you don't get many rights.
This brings us to the other point. What people call themselves proudly to be law-abiding. That to me, it's like you're just an obedient drone that does what it's told. Because all laws are politicians' scribbles. They have no moral, compass at all in many circumstances. So when somebody here's somebody say, "I'm a law-abiding citizen,"
are here for a good reason. However,
Eduardo,
most laws, there's a reason it doesn't have anything to do with morality. And when I hear gun owners saying, "Oh, I'm a law-abiding gun owner" or whatever, it's like, it's like that doesn't. I don't really. What I would like to hear more like is I'm a moral defender of human rights, and that's why I have a gun. So if the government imposes on my human rights, I can protect myself. That sounds better than I'm a law-abiding citizen or whatever.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, exactly. What I did, why I got in trouble is because I said it out of a moral position, because I thought, I did it in the name of social justice. I mean, it wasn't law-abiding at all, though.
Eduardo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Al.
Okay,
Can you hear us?
It's very common practice. Yeah, I can hear you. It's a very common practice, Eduardo, on our program that when we get updates on Facebook, that we let the listeners know. And I've been hearing about the story for a while. And the latest on the Buckingham Palace scandal, which I'm sure you heard about, it shows the Queen Elizabeth as a child giving the Nazi salute. The latest on that is, the response of the royal family was outraged that somebody would release that. And now what they're doing is launching a hunt for the source who leaked the Nazi salute film of the Queen Elizabeth when she was a child. So what really astounds me about this whole thing, and that there's no distancing of the royal family from the Nazis. There's no even denying that the salute was made or apologizing for having been pro-Nazi at one time. All they're focused on is going after the person who leaked it and then condemning that it was leaked in the first place. That's pretty scary.
Here's the thing. It has a historical context. The royal family was essentially preparing to welcome the Germans in after World War II, and they were anticipating that they would lose.
Eduardo, please. Let me finish my point real quick, then you can respond. And if you look at how the British, how the American, how the Canadians, consistent policy in the past year of supporting neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine and the fascist takeover in Kiev, it's really scary. In contrast, that a story like this comes out and they're not separating themselves from Nazis. I mean, you have a rise of fascism going on now in Europe. You have Golden Dawn now making advances in Greece, especially with the failure of Syriza to stop the austerity. So I think it's a very scary scenario if you're looking at that.
Indeed. Yeah.
It's like, and I want to talk about Greece because we're talking about distancing ourselves to them. I know in the past on this very same show just a few weeks ago, we probably before it took a very unexpected turn on this whole Greek thing that we supported Alexis Tsipras as a prime minister of Greece, and but however we saw how he's betrayed his own parliament members by accepting the EU bailout, which will impose austerity on his own citizens. So we officially, me and Al do not support.
We support
Tsipras. However, we do not round our support for the Syriza dissident
voters of the Syriza party in the parliament. So there are swaths of Syriza that are refusing to go along with Tsipras' betrayal, the new prime minister. So the former finance minister as well could form an opposition and unite with other groups to counter that. So that gives us some hope. But Golden Dawn, very scary group. You know, they scapegoat all the immigrants in Greece. They're a fascist group. They're also anti-EU, but obviously you don't want them as allies because they're fascists. So very scary scenario.
Yeah, it is. And also, I mean, the fact that they're gaining popularity should tell you thousands of words, just that alone. The fact that those kinds of ideologies are regaining ground, it tells you something about the social situation, the social condition of what's going on in those countries right now. It's people become desperate, they turn to anything, whether it's wholesome or gruesome, no matter how toxic the ideology is. If it makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel like if something is promising, they'll go right for it.
I think that at this point, I mean, yeah, there's, it's really funny that in Greece that these people, or there's people in Europe in general could be, complaining about immigrants coming in our country, especially from North Africa, when the EU supported, the EU and NATO supported the bombings of Libya in 2011 that caused all these immigrants to have to run from, Libya to Europe, because now Libya, the same beaches where European tourists used to, hang out on 5 years ago, are now beaches where ISIS executions are happening. Ever since Gaddafi fell, that's how it's been. Terrorists have ran wild in that country.
Run by Libyan immigrants, not just other European countries. And recently, you had that attack of tourists in Tunisia. All that's related to what happened in Libya.
Yeah, I think Libya is very kind of central to this. I mean, no.
It's of their own doing. They were asking for it.
It's kind of like the same logic again. Like it's the same logic that the Americans, they're ignorant to the fact of what the government has done by funding drug cartels, like what we saw in Operation Fast and Furious. They armed drug cartels that wreak havoc in Mexico. Mexicans, run from that, from the horrors of what those drug cartels inflict on Mexicans. Then they come to the United States, and the Americans blame the Mexicans running from the problem that the government created, our government. And the U.S. government has not just been doing it a few years. They've been doing it probably ever since they banned weed back in 1937 when the drug war started. I know they've been doing it, since the Vietnam time, because back in Vietnam, they were part of the illegal drug trade because they would bring opium in the supposed caskets of soldiers, or dead soldiers, but it was really in there was opium. It was a U.S. government aided operation. It was actually. There's in these drug operations are not just aided; it's at their command because this creates revenue. The drug war creates a lot of revenue. Just like the supposed war on terrorism. These wars are not real wars. They're not actually fighting drugs or actual terrorists in the Middle East. But what they are is creating revenue by. They aid terrorists in the Middle East, as we see in Syria. They aid drug cartels. You start really going down the rabbit hole, and you start seeing the truth of things. It's almost overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you travel to Mexico, like Chris and I have traveled to other countries as well. It gives you a different perspective when you come home. You know what I mean? Like even to people that are older, like they're not going when they're young. Like Jesse Ventura, basically retired from being governor and went down to Baja California in Mexico. Like, what's your take on Jesse Ventura?
I like his views. I think he's I mean, at least he's got some good ideas going for him. That's for sure. Out of all the interviews that I've heard from him, or the stuff I've read about him, I like the guy so far. I mean, I like Bernie Sanders
A
too.
couple of his books. I think he's brilliant. He's tough. He's disciplined, and you'd have discipline when you're forming a movement. It's not just about a political campaign. And I'm hearing now he wants to run, possibly president of the Libertarian Party. I mean, there are different types of libertarian, but I certainly don't agree with everything that Jesse Ventura is about. But definitely, he's a man of principle. And if you compare him to Jill Stein, in the Green Party, I mean, some of her domestic points of view I disagree with. So I'd really opt for Ventura on that. But Chris, what's your take?
I'm Ventura. I mean, it's like I don't know what I can be mad about Ventura about. Really, I mean, it's that Ventura is just he just said a lot. I mean, in his life, I mean, he's just done a lot of stuff, and he's just a very interesting person in general. But the fact that what he supports politically is that he actually became a governor as a third party. He did not breaking his principles like Bernie Sanders, where he always was like a Democrat, and now he actually is a Democrat. Bernie, he's not like that guy. Ventura, as governor, ran under the Reform Party and actually won as a Reform Party candidate. He got in the debates. I think that's part of the key. And I think the presidential elections don't really matter that much, because I think that it doesn't matter who becomes president. It's who are the elite, the super rich of this country select to be president. But I think a governor race, maybe it's not rigged, and so maybe that's the reason why he was able to win in Minnesota. But Ventura, I mean, this guy not only does he doesn't take a libertarian stance like that of right-wing libertarian. He also realizes that he puts a role of the super rich for causing these problems, and he puts a role for economic inequality, extreme economic inequality, for causing a lot of these problems. And he really, he might not be as radical as maybe me and Al, but Jesse Ventura is definitely on the right track. And also, he actually had the balls to go to Cuba and actually, do a diplomatic mission of sorts back when he was a governor of Minnesota, towards the end of his last term. Well, actually, only did one term, I think. But yeah, towards the end of his term, I think he went, or was it after? That was around 2000. That was in the early 2000s. He went to Cuba.
Eduardo, what's your
and also?
Yes.
I'll talk about Ventura after that. But yeah, what's your take on Bernie?
Well, of all the current candidates, he's the one with his head between his shoulders. I'm going to just put that in a nutshell.
He's a what?
Well,
he's the only one with his head between his shoulders and not up his ass.
I just think that the mere act that Sanders, and I've always been very fishy on Sanders. I was in correspondence with him a while ago. The mere fact that he's ran as a Democrat really says something to the left. And it says the wrong message. It says, like, the only way that you can win is if you join up with the corporate party. That's not a real message of a socialist like Eugene Debs. Like, I just don't respect that Sanders has done that.
Well, Sanders isn't taking corporate money from donations, as far as I know.
I mean, Chris, you want to elaborate on our stance on Bernie here?
I'll go straight 100% hard on Bernie Sanders. That Bernie Sanders, he does not represent the true left, in my opinion, and I don't like that he's been painted that way. That which represents the people of the true left. Number two, doesn't the fact that people are acting like he has a legitimate chance to win now, and apparently that in some polls he's came out ahead. If he actually does win the election, doesn't that tell you something about who Bernie really is? I mean, let me remind you something. Obama was not expected to win in '08. And everybody was saying, oh, look, Obama's going to bring change. I know Obama never openly identified himself as a socialist, but it was almost implied.
Yeah, it turned out
And
to
look
be
what
worse.
happened. He ended up being another fucking George Bush. Excuse my language. But it pisses me off about what happened with that. And if
I see your
Bernie
point.
gets elected and this happens again, I'm going to be double pissed off.
Well,
And
I see your
Al's
point
message,
now.
the last message is that let's talk about one of the worst human crimes violations of the 20th century going into the 21st century now. Started in 1947, an illegal legal seizure of land happened in the Middle East of people coming from Europe to the Middle East. And these people, whenever you criticize them, they call you anti-Semitic, even though they're not the Semitic people. They're Europeans that immigrated to Palestine, and then they conquered Palestine, and they made this fiction, this fiction Israel. I still call it Palestine because it is Palestinian land. But Sanders supports Israel. Sure.
Now they use self-righteousness because, we were victims of the Nazis. We're entitled to any land. But they still use that card. They still pull that card to this very day. And really, it's getting old.
What's getting old? Can you speak up?
And the fact that the Israelis keep pulling the victim card is like, hey, our founders were victims of the Nazis.
That the conflict's been going on too long?
Excuse me?
You said the conflict's been going on too long?
No. I said about Israel, it still bases its whole existence on victimhood, on playing the victim.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's
that's part of the problem with
self-blaming.
Israel is that they play the victim, and they play. It doesn't matter. They play like they were entitled to that land just because of the horrors of what happened under Nazi Germany. But I don't. It's like I want you to you probably, I don't know if you know, Eduardo, but I want you to go on the internet later, look up a little thing called the Transfer Agreement. The Transfer Agreement was signed in 1933 between this actually existed in Germany during the Nazi time. The Zionist Federation in Germany and Nazi Germany signed an agreement that would send Jews that could pay the fine, or there was a tax that just to get to actually move out and move all your stuff to Palestine, and to go. And the plan was to conquer Palestine in order to have a place for German Jews to go somewhere else that wasn't Germany, and in return they get a homeland of their own.
So the enemy was the British. The British didn't want them to come to Palestine, so the Germans were doing that also to sabotage British rule in Palestine at that time.
Oh, interesting.
And also,
they kind of got what they wished.
Is that that Israel was formed off of 3 illegal terrorist groups, and one of them I think actually admitted to being terrorist, and they didn't care. They used that term openly. And one of these terrorist groups was supportive. I'm not kidding. I'm Nazi Germany. And it was a Zionist terror group. Was supportive of Nazi Germany until a certain point, because they saw it as a resistance supposedly, to Britain. And they didn't. They picked. I guess they saw Nazi Germany as the lesser of 2 evils. I guess. So really, when they used that excuse about, we were the victims of the Nazi war crimes. Well, the idea of Israel is kind of, in the way it came about, is kind of Nazi itself.
Well,
and
what are the
another thing is that they always, start talking about the Palestinians, and Hamas shooting rockets at them. Okay, one thing about it is that their weaponry, unfortunately, is very primitive in Palestine, and they can't really fight back. But it does not even kill any Israelis. But the Israelis, they killed 2,000 Palestinian citizens in 2014.
500.
They injure 8,000 and make 80,000 homeless. But there's not international outrage about that, or at least in the West. There is international outrage in Iran, Russia, countries that are not part of the West, but of course, and especially the United States, where the Israelis have such an influence on our media.
Yeah, Eduardo's really somebody of principle right there. What he went through. Like I said, I didn't really necessarily support his particular tactic, but the reaction from the state for what he had done, I think it was an overreaction and a violation of his free speech. And we don't have to get into that because it's off topic. We've done that in a prior show. People can look it up on the Block Talk Radio, the Voice of Rebellion over there. But it's always good to have principled people that can call in, and we're always open to debate. People that could, be hostile to us because we're going to stick to our principles.
Well, yeah,
as well.
It's like the debates make these shows interesting. It's like, it's like I really. It's like, I'm still waiting for the time. I don't like that. I think they're too much, part of my pun here, the feminists are too much of pussies to call into our show and debate us. But I was always saying that I was expecting at some point they would debate us because we've actually made a show about pointing out how, how feminism is very destructive to the activist community, especially the ones connected with the new wave anarchist. I want, these new wave people in the anarchist movement, in case people are wondering what that is, these are people that are they just don't believe in authority whatsoever. But it's like they don't even believe in authority and revolution, and they don't believe, and they just they're in anarchist movement not because they actually want to. Not because of the reasons against the government necessarily, but it seems like more like it's a cool thing for them to do. That's how these
Chris, I'll be right
work.
back, okay?
Cool, Al. Yeah, I'm gonna say since we haven't mentioned we haven't mentioned the phone number since around 9:30. I'm gonna say it again: 718-717-8296. 718-717-8296. Anybody wants to call in? Yeah, one last time: 718-717-8296. Here at UCY Radio, it is almost 10:20 Eastern Time, and almost 10:20 Eastern Time. We've been an hour and 20 minutes into the show, and I want to mention, these conspiracy theorists versus conspiracy realists. This debate about or this idea, this idea of the show, it partially was to debunk InfoWars, but it's also to bring up a general concept.
Yeah, back by the way.
This concept that we're the conspiracy theorist, again, it's not just Alex Jones. There's a few truthers in this movement, and a lot of people following of Alex Jones that have been tainted by Alex Jones or people like him. I mean, there's other ones that are not. They're in this for either to make money or they're directly. I think Alex Jones is a government agent, really, because it's Alex Jones.
Right?
He has a role, and but it's not just people.
Chris?
It's not just him.
Chris?
Yeah,
You heard me
yeah. Al Shores is back on. I can barely hear you, Al.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty difficult. I'm out of town, and it's difficult from this area. It's okay.
Yeah, and one to mention though is that it's really bad. At times what Alex Jones has done to the truther community by he's put he's put this extreme anti-communist sentiment at the times, and then when I ask that they're anti-communist sentiment, they're supposedly against the government and against the mainstream media, but they sound exactly like the mainstream media or the government talking against communists. They sound just when you literally when they just sound like the mainstream media, like sound like Fox News talk about talk about Fidel Castro, for example, when Jones would talk about Castro, or Jones rarely even talked about international leaders. I mean, Jones is Jones is again more nationally focused, but when he does talk about international, it's from a point of xenophobia. He talked about Muslims coming to this country or Mexicans coming to this country. It's I think that he literally has it's all kind of the same kind of or he talks about blacks in the way that thugs, like the media talks about them. It's but talk about thugs like that, like how them, or to talk about black people like calling them thugs like the media calls them, or when it comes even with Russians in a way, he makes it seem like we've been or people like him in the truth movement. They put pictures of Lenin or Khrushchev, and then there's two quotes that are commonly used by truthers that they say that eventually we're going to cause a communist subversion in the United States, and they try to put stuff in there that say that that stuff going on in the United States is the tactics of the way that we're being subversed to go to communism. Or there's even books, like they're trying to say that what went on in the United States is the route to socialism, or is the route to the communism. But we literally have, when there's like 11 characteristics that academics out there, people that really know what's going on, when it was steps to go to fascism, and we meet all 11 of them practically. I would say we meet all 11 because there was one that said one sex dominating the other or something like that. But what has happened, even though that there's not really that much of a inequality there that I could see, what has happened is that they have split. The sexes are more separated, I think, than at any time really. Maybe we have to go back to a time when men were absolutely dominant of women, maybe back at the turn of the century. But now they've turned them against each other with this feminism. They make it seem like men and women are competing against each other, rather than, I think, they should be complementary of each other. Because it's just gender. It's just like race or anything else. Is that we're human. We're working class. We have to work together. It's not. We can't be dividing us up like that. And that seems to be a giant divider, because you're literally splitting off, half of, when you put women against men, you're literally splitting in half the activist community or whatever, the working class. So in a way, feminism has been able to do that step that when I used to say, it's 10 out of 11 steps. It's actually, we've reached all 11 steps towards fascism. America has went fully fascist recently. And I think soon it'll be eventually under martial law. It's like I want to give it a little update, because this is our first show since since Jade Helm actually started. Jade Helm 15 started. Started on let's see, today's the 19th. So it started on Wednesday. Yeah, on Wednesday, Jade Helm 15 started. And there's been all kinds of military exercise. And Florida is one of the states where we are. And I've seen, here in personally Tampa Bay, I've seen a lot of helicopter presence. I've seen a lot. I saw one day where police were just in my neighborhood, practically guarding the block. They were just guarding the block almost all day. That was, I think, the second day of Jade Helm, so the 16th. I mean, I've been kind of watching it, so I don't think I'm being overly paranoid. It just seems to be just obvious to me that there's definitely the exercises that became apparent. And it's definitely, I don't think it's actually going to lead to martial law like some people say, but I think it's a training for martial law when it actually does happen 2 or 3 years down the road. And I don't think, and that's all I'm going to give is at the most. I'd be shocked if we don't make it to 2018, or if we do make it to 2018 and there's no martial law. Because I really think that by that time there'll already be a war in Syria, there'll be a war in Iran. I mean, Netanyahu said back in 2013 that it'll be 3 to 4 years before New York is attacked. It didn't really give any conditions. They just made it seem like that's when it's going to happen. How would he know? Can he tell the future? Or is it like 9/11 all over again, where they're going to have a serious involvement and they already have the plan set up? They had
Chris,
they probably already
I
planned
to move the computer. Hold on. Keep talking. Just I won't be able to speak to you for the next couple minutes.
Okay. But I want, or Dick Cheney recently has prognosticated an event worse than 9/11, I believe is what he said. And he said, and also in the same RT article they were writing about, I think they were trying to point out that this is unusual because they said that he prognosticated in the spring of 2011, or 2001, 2001, that there'd be a attack, and there was, and there was 9/11 happening.
All right, I'm back.
an event worse than 9/11 is going to happen. That Dick Cheney has prognosticated again. Is he able to tell the future? No, he's not. Same thing with Netanyahu. So I think that stuff is coming up.
Can you hear me?
What that Jade Helm is preparing for.
Can
I can barely hear you.
All right, just let you know I'm back.
Al Shores is back in the studio, but you hear what I was talking about, Al? Is that apparently both Dick Cheney and Netanyahu, they can tell the future and they can tell that the United States is going to get attacked soon. Netanyahu said in 3 to 4 years back in 2013, so that'd leave it around 2016, 2017 it would happen. He said New York too. He didn't even say the United States in general. Cheney said an attack on the United States, said worse than 9/11, and he prognosticated that, meaning he could tell the future practically. He's able to make these both of them are able to make these bold predictions, which I think this is what this Jade Helm 15 is about. We're not far away from something that kicks off World War III, and I think people are saying, well, we're at peace with Iran right now, but the United States is not. This is a trap. Remember back in 2002 when they were about to invade Iraq, but they gave with Saddam, they had a deal set up similar like the one with Iran nuke deal, and then eventually they accused them of actually having WMDs, and they actually went in there. They're going to probably accuse Iran of actually having nukes, and the thing is that I don't even blame Iran. I think that Iran has the right to make nuclear arms, considering that Israel has already made nuclear arms and has enough to blow up half the world. I'm serious about that. So,
well, look, you're talking.
What do you think about these whole Jade Helm 15 thing now?
Chris, you're talking about a lot of different things here. You're talking about an internal, order, which was the J Helms thing, and then
I think this is what's preparing.
I
think it's preparing for
But you're not letting me
for a potential World War.
I had a question. And then you're talking about World War III with Iran. So let's try to make a correlation, right? You're saying that once World War III happens, then there'd be chaos here, and then they make a J Helms thing. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying that they're preparing for that because they have in the plans a giant war in the Middle East soon, and they know that once that happens, they're going to lock down the country at the same time. They'll have to at a war that scope. It always happens in giant wars like that. So this is what this Jade Helm 15 is preparing for, because they know that soon, they're going to be locking down the country after they get involved with Syria and Iran.
Well, the only people they were locking up during World War II were Japanese Americans, pretty much. Matter of fact, eventually the United States and Russia. Well, by the time the United States entered the war, right? Because this is post-Hitler-Stalin pact. The United States worked alongside Russia, so they weren't worried about communists. It was kind of like a pause to the Cold War during World War II, right? Out of necessity, tactically, not ideologically. But, the only people they rounded up really were Japanese Americans. If they had rounded up all the German Americans, then come on, there was so many, right? And plus it was racist. But, so it's not every single war the United States engaged in, they shut down the country and made like a J Helms type of thing. That's not accurate to say that. But in a World War III scenario, nuclear, I mean, come on, everything would shut down.
Well, I'm saying that that this is going to be a gigantic war, not every war, but in a giant war. And definitely, and the thing is that it's not because they have to, it's because they want to lock away dissidents. It's because, and it's somewhat because they're worried about what threat we could present in a world war. In a world war, a country's government becomes unstable. We could, like what happened in Russia during World War I, do revolution, and while they have their hands tied behind their backs in Iran and Syria or whatever, we take our opportunity. If you have their hands tied somewhere else, that's when revolutions can happen. This could be very likely. So of course they're going to put away dissidents and stuff like that, and I think this time it'd be Muslims because. You can tell the government considers just Muslims in general a threat, and that the people of America wouldn't be against it. Unfortunately,
it's the end of humanity as we know it. This World War III, they wouldn't have to shut down anything because there would be no humanity left if it was an all-out nuclear war. So I think what you're talking about is a civil war or a scenario where the economy collapses, right?
I don't think so. I think that maybe it's not a nuclear war. I definitely don't think it's that. I think it's just the wars in the Middle East would become a lot more. Would become would escalate heavily. And, Iran and Syria would get involved, and the United States and Israel against Iran and Syria. Maybe it wouldn't technically be a world war because it wouldn't be across the world, but it'd be a Middle Eastern regional war that the entire region's affected. And I think by its intensity, because really in a way the World War II wasn't across the entire world, but it was just in the Pacific and the European theater. I think that this Middle Eastern theater that would open up after the United States invades Syria and Iran would be to the same intensity or worse of World War II. It would be I think it's very likely to be happening, within
Okay, what would the population? Okay, the Nazis killed 25 to 30 million Russians. So with Russia's population today, I mean, we're talking like a billion people. So you're going to say that it's at the same level of World War II, but it's not World War III. I don't know. It's just confusing to call it World War III. It really is. I think we should just call it an economic collapse, a potential civil war, and increased tensions in the Middle East. We don't want to overstate it, because if it is,
when I am stating, let me make this clear. I think I didn't make this clear. I don't think Russia would get involved if the United States invaded Syria or Iran. I really don't, because I know Russia would be too worried that at that point it would lead to all out. That would be apocalyptic. So I'm just saying. So it would. I'm not saying a war between the United States and Russia will happen soon. Maybe way down the road. But I think it's like World War I and War II. That's what I predict the scenario. That there'll be a smaller war, but it's a bit different, followed by a lot more drastic war. But both these wars are going to be very intense. But that's what I think is going to happen. But there's also economic collapse might happen. Will happen actually. Civil war, I don't see civil war happening. Maybe a revolution. Yeah, a revolution, but I don't know what you're saying. What you're pointing at by civil war.
Civil war, it could be that and a revolution at the same time. In Russia, first there was a revolution initially, and then there was a civil war. In Spain, first there was a civil war and then a revolution. So it could be at the same time. It could be one immediately after the other, but they usually are combined.
Because it's I don't. But I'm just saying that I think that's what it's about. I think it's the fact that this is an intense war is coming up. How about instead of calling it War III, even though it's not going to, because when I say War III, people automatically assume Russia versus the United States. No, the United States will get involved in Iran and Syria, and that's going to cause martial law in the United States at the same time. That's what's going to happen, because and there will be economic collapse probably happen at the same time. It's all going to go together. It seems it seems like when when a country's economy starts to collapse, like the United States, where it's not really going to be a collapse necessarily. It's going to be a dollar reset. They're going to restructure the dollar. Is what's going to happen down the road, and the United States, it's going to leave. Who's going to feel the effects are going to be the poor, the working class. But the people that are not going to feel the effects, the elite, are going to come out unscathed, just like what happened at the 2008 financial crisis, where the poor and the working class suffered heavily. I mean, that was one of the worst. That was probably one of the worst economic problems we've ever had as a country. But the elite came out unscathed and actually were richer than ever. It was kind of a robbery that almost happened. All the bailouts and all that.
I wish Eduardo earlier, when he was on Blog Talk Radio, elaborated on the whole Trump situation, because all he said is that he didn't think that El Chapo had a Twitter account. But that's not really getting in depth on the issue. I mean, clearly Eduardo's Mexican and, he's interested in politics. You think he would have spoken a little bit more on Trump. Obviously, he doesn't support Trump. But I think Trump knows he's going to lose. He's just trying to get media attention. I mean, it's just stupid. I mean, it's even him saying now anybody captured in war is a coward, and him using that to attack McCain. I mean, he's pissing off a lot of people within his own party. He used to be a Democrat. It's a joke. I mean, I put up on my status the other day on Facebook, I found out a Florida Republican claimed that Trump was a Democrat plan to make Republicans look bad. And I said, well, not playing a plot. And I said, well, the Republicans don't have to plot to look stupid. They're pretty overt about that.
But like I said, it's like it doesn't matter who wins 2016. The robbery, the poor by the elite continues, and it's like I don't Sanders, Clinton, whatever. It's like and I think that in the long run, the person that the elite are going to pick looks to be Hillary Clinton probably or Jeb Bush, one of the two. That doesn't really matter to me, but I think that's what's going to happen because Sanders might be having a few poll numbers high in some places. But Clinton just, it's the one that the elite are going to pick, and she has all the money behind her. And Jeb Bush, I mean, he's supposedly Trump's ahead of him in the polls. The last time I checked, I really doubt to believe that. And it's like Jeb Bush. Also, I know, he's a Bush family. He's the one of the elite's favorite family to put as the corporate spokesman of America. It's not a president; it's a corporate spokesman. That's all. That's all he's going to do. And would it be fitting for Jeb Bush to be the guy that's in charge when the next big false flag happens, just like his brother was in charge when 9/11 happened?
Chris, we got about 20 minutes left of the show. I wanted to read this article real quick from the Daily Mail on the Nazi salute scandal that I mentioned earlier. I mean, the Queen's talking about taking legal action, like for what? It's not defamation if they're actually showing footage of her giving the Nazi salute. But is it all right if I read it real quick?
Yeah, read it.
All right, it says, Queen is quote-unquote livid over leaked Nazi salute footage as Buckingham Palace launches hunt for the source and considers legal action. The Queen is said to be livid over leaked footage of her being taught how to perform a Nazi salute in 1933 as Buckingham Palace launched an investigation to how the clip ended up in the hands of the Sun. The Palace is considering legal action, has begun inquiry into whether there was any criminality involved in obtaining the 17-second film clip, which belongs in the family's highly restricted private archive. And the Queen herself was said to have been deeply saddened that the clip had emerged, especially because it also showed the Queen Mother joining in, and has demanded that the source of the leak be found. Yeah, so they're only concerned about the...
But they don't even distance themselves, like you said, from the Nazis or whatsoever.
Right. And then here it says, there's mischief-making going on here, and it's hurtful. A senior royal insider told the Sunday Mirror, Her Majesty is livid at the distortion of truth and betrayal. She's furious about the damaging publicity for her late mother more than anything, given how she was a rock for the king and the people during the war. The publication of the grainy black and white footage has also caused outrage across the nation, while the palace said it was disappointed that the film had been obtained and exploited in this manner. Outrage? Outrage over it being exposed, not what they were doing, right? And then it says, the film clip shows the future Edward long accused of being a Nazi sympathizer, teaching the 7-year-old queen and her then 3-year-old sister, Princess Margaret, how to perform the Nazi salute. So, if Edward was a Nazi sympathizer and the rest of the royal family wasn't, including his wife, then why are they all doing Nazi salutes together in the footage? They saw the Nazis at that time as anti-Bolsheviks. But anyway, it says the Queen Mother.
Well, I got something to say about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that the royal family, not unlike most racists, are inbred.
Are what?
They're just like the Southern racists. They're all inbred. That's probably why
they've married their cousins for years. Okay, and then it says here, the Queen Mother, who died in 2002 at the age of 101, also salutes in the film, which begins with the family playing with one of them 2 royal corgis in the ground of Burkill of the Balmoral estate. It is now believed that the footage was recorded by the Queen's father, the future King George. The palace is...
Wait. Did you just say that the Queen's mother lived to 101?
Yeah.
I swear those evil fucks live long lives, don't they?
I found out what they do. They go to the Mayo Clinic, and they pay like $1 million to get their skin viewed so that if they see like a little dot of cancer, they'll prevent it before it ever comes. So a lot of people die from cancer. They're able to live longer because of that. That's one of the reasons I heard. But anyways, it says here... the palace is prepared to bring police into the investigation if any evidence emerges that the footage was stolen from the royal archives, which are based at Windsor Castle. Another royal source told the Sunday Mirror that the Queen was particularly keen to find out why the footage had been released. It is because you guys are supporting Nazis in Ukraine, right? And it says, quote, she wants to know who leaks this film and how they got it, but most of all, why they did it, they said. Other possibilities are being investigated with inquiry, including whether the footage may have been handed over inadvertently as part of a batch of royal home movies released to filmmakers. It says here,
you know, it's like
right. Yeah.
I do know that, it's like I know that, and I've known for a while that the Queen, you know, and you know the British monarchy were pro-Nazi. But you know, I didn't know it was to this extent where they're doing freaking Hitler salutes
at first. But then it goes on to say the Sun has refused to reveal its source, but announced that the original film remains under lock and key. It added that several copies of the clip were made several years ago, and that one copy has been handed to the newspaper. The palace spokesman said most people will see these pictures in their proper context and time. This is a feeling playing and momentarily referencing a gesture many would have seen from contemporary newsreels. No one at the time has had any sense how it would evolve. To imply anything else is misleading and dishonest. Yeah, right. The Queen is around 6 years of age at the time, entirely innocent of attaching any meaning to these gestures. Her whole freaking family took part in it, right? The Queen, her family's service and dedication to the welfare of his nation during the war, and the 63 years the Queen has spent building relations with nations and people speaks for itself. Publication of the 17-second film has outraged thousands across the nation who believe that the Queen cannot be held responsible for actions as a girl playing with her family. Scores of Twitter users vented their anger this morning, saying the Sun has sunk to a new low. Television newspaper owner Rupert Murdoch could be banned from the UK. Isn't that ironic? It's owned by Murdoch, of all people. I mean, he is a Jew, but he's a fascist. But anyway, it says here, appalled reader Rachel Hawkins wrote, "If I was the Queen, I'd ban that absolute vile individual, Rupert Murdoch, from ever entering this country again." I mean, they're even trying to ban a rich person like Murdoch from entering countries over this. And then it says here, another user said, the Sun has sunk to a new low, and assuming the Queen has not sympathies with the headline, the royal halenesses. Instead of highnesses, right?
Oh.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's like, yeah, it was, you know, it's funny, you know, that Daily Mail would even put something like that because how damaging it is to their, you know, precious British royalty. I mean, I find the fact that they still have a royalty, I know that they don't even, well, they still have some power, actually. I mean, they kind of roll from the shit.
They have the executive power to block legislation from the British Parliament.
Yeah, so they actually have quite a bit of power still, and the fact that they even have them all together is ridiculous. I mean, they use taxpayer money to upkeep their wealth. You know, it's like that. Monarchies in this day is just is kind of an absurd thing. I mean, think about it. When it's like Russia, for example, it's like they even though they have let the Romanovs back in the country, they never gave them their czar title again, even if it was ceremonial, because they know that it's not a good concept to give out.
So anyways, it goes on. Others said the footage had been taken out of context, with Josh Cook tweeting horrible journalism pre-World War II before anybody knew anything about Nazi behavior. Yeah, right. The Nazis were expressly anti-Semitic from the very beginning. They said exactly what they were going to do. And then here it says, Angela Jwala added, the Sun, great. Enough bloody hatred in the world, and you go and use this picture to incite more of it. Cheers. Yeah, as if exposing the truth is inciting hatred, right? And then columnist, it's all one-sided. Columnist Hugo Riffwen tweeted, I suppose there's always a chance that Queen Elizabeth II hadn't really thought her politics through when she was 7. It's like, yeah, but her family's influencing her, training her. Like, they're completely ignoring the context. They're talking about context. Anyways, it goes here. It says, understood that the Sun obtained the footage several weeks ago, but the palace was only made aware of it just on Thursday evening. After a fierce exchange of letters, the newspaper made the decision to publish the footage for today's edition. It says the king was also not a sympathizer. And then it says the Sun's managing editor, Stig Abel, said the clip was obtained in a legitimate fashion, added that the publication was not a criticism of the Queen or the Queen Mum. It's a historical document that really sheds some insight into the behavior of Edward, he told BBC. However, the decision to publish the photograph with the headline, Their Royal Halenesses, does not necessarily reflect this view. When asked about the allegations the royal family had been exploited, he said, I understand that they don't like this coming out, but also feel on a relatively jurist basis that the role of journalists and the media is to bring light to these things. Absolutely. That's what journalists are supposed to do, bring light to these things. And then they want to ban the head of the newspaper from entering the country. I don't like Murdoch, but he has a right to travel where he wants. Anyways, it says here, in response to publication of the footage, Buckingham Palace is being encouraged to release documents that may cast further light on the relationship between the royal family and the Nazi regime. The unveiling of the family film clip has sparked concerns that the palace is withholding material that could be seen to damage the reputation of the family. Allegations have been made that there could be further footage that reveals ties between the royals and the Third Reich. Prominent German historian Dr. Karina Urbach insisted that withholding possible material is censorship. University of London historian added censorship is not a democratic value. They have to face their past. The footage shows Margaret waving silently with both hands before Elizabeth breaks into a Scottish jig. Queen Mother can be seen performing out to salute. Princess Elizabeth follows suit, both standing straight back, holding their right arm aloft. Prince Edward joins in before the clip cuts to close the faces of the two princesses. So, I want to hear what Putin has to say about this, because you had, what was it, Prince Charles say that Putin was Hitler, when his family, survived the siege of Leningrad. Yeah.
And I want to also point out the fact that, at one time, I think it was one of the royalty, I think it was Prince Charles himself, supposedly for Halloween, he dressed up as a Nazi. Now, I don't know about you.
That was one of Princess Di's sons, the redhead.
But it's like I don't think people usually dress up as a Nazi on Halloween. I don't know. I just think that's a little bit unacceptable. I mean, imagine it's like, do you ever see somebody? Oh, that's just a totally normal thing for somebody to dress up like a Nazi on Halloween. Like, it shows that he has some sympathy even to the modern day. I think the British, the monarchy, have because just like a lot of monarchies have sympathy to fashion.
Family, because the family let him go ahead and dress like that, right?
Yeah, it's because it's really because in the image that paints out for the family, and they just let that happen. And also, Russia, Putin as the president of a country that lost 29 million civilians, 16 million soldiers. They lost 45 million total up to the highest estimate. I'm putting the highest estimate still. And then at the lower estimates, 27 million. That's still a crazy amount of people died by Nazi Germany. I think the official estimates for around 30 million, but there's estimates that have a lot of substantial evidence towards, say, 45 million perished in the Soviet Union during World War II. So as the president of a country that had that happen, I'm sure Putin's going to be outraged. Is going to address this about this, this scandal eventually. Maybe not in a speech or anything, but he's definitely going to address it somehow. And I think not just him, but I think
Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister of Britain, visited his country during the Syrian crisis, and he said, "I don't know why you guys are supporting, cannibals in Syria." And that's when that video came out, where the Syrian rebel was eating the heart of one of his victims. And you should have seen Gordon Brown's face. It wasn't Gordon Brown. It was the current Cameron, the current Prime Minister. Cameron's face was all red when Putin said that. But he doesn't mince words, and I'm sure he's going to say something about this latest scandal as well.
I mean, it's what's a good right now analogy for the compare when you're comparing Britain's behavior and the United States behavior? Like father, like son. Britain's the father, and the United States is the son,
right?
And they act the same. I mean, really, when United States, I know what I say. What the United States' role today is that they're the military arm for the financial elite around the world, the New World Order. Back in the day, it was Britain. Now it's the United States. Ever since around the turn of the 20th century, when the Federal Reserve happened, they kind of had control. I mean, they have had control of the United States since. Like Britain used to be that role when they were the British Empire. And so it's really not surprising that Britain is going to be doing, but Britain's more overtly fascist, I believe, than the United States, because the United States might be just as fascist in reality, but they're definitely not. They're definitely a little bit more in the closet about it. But in ways they're not so much in the closet about it, because you hear their rhetoric and you hear, I think that it's almost acceptable for people in the media to describe this country as corporatist, and that's almost like an acceptable ideology, even though it's the same thing as fascist. Corporatist and fascist are the same word, just because fascism is the merger of corporate and state power. Anyway, we've got 10 minutes left of the show. I'm going to put out the number one last time, 718-717-8296. If anybody wants to call in last minute, it puts some final thoughts. I mean, we already had our one caller, and I can't believe we're about to wrap it up, Al, but we somehow made it through in just in the last 4.5 hours, we've done 2 hours and 45 minutes of broadcasting in 2 different shows. We had the 2 guests earlier on the show. That one of them called in this show, and I think it was a pretty good day for us on radio. Wouldn't you agree?
Especially considering I'm out of town, but I was still able to make the proper accommodations. So.
Yeah, I gotta say thanks a lot, Alex, because I know it's inconvenient to try to do radio when you're out of town and visiting family and stuff like that. Like when I was out of town, I think it'd be a little bit inconvenient. So it's like I gotta give you props for actually calling in, and give you mad props for that. I mean,
well, what I try to do as an activist is make every disadvantage of an advantage. So when I lost my job recently, I focused on completing my 3rd book, which I was finally able to publish, and I'm using this extra time so that I can do more activism, more radio. So you try to take a disadvantage and make it into an advantage.
Yeah, and also I want to. I also want to say about, because I don't think we haven't talked that much about your book on there, and it's like I have a little bit of my writing in there too, so that's why I wanted to talk about it too. Since
Festo is in there,
so I'm actually crediting it. Am I on there? So as one of the contributors to that book. So the Vanguard faction is on Amazon
of the manifesto, and the manifesto is copied in one of the chapters, and I believe Voice of Rebellion in the manifesto is also mentioned. So from this book, this program will get some more recognition as well. For people that know how to listen to from UCY, they'll listen to it. The Times will go on back on Blog Talk as well. It won't be as long as UCY, but hopefully next time we can have a guest. We get like Pedro or somebody on here. I mean, a special guest that'll be dedicated to them. The show, this was just Eduardo adding on to the conversation a bit. Look up my book. It's
about the Vanguard
faction. It's on Amazon now.
$5 only. We made it for the working class. To be able to afford.
Working class price this time. Absolutely.
I think that it's $5. And I think it's knowing your writing, it's really worth the read for $5.
As soon as I get back, I'm going in my mailbox because the book got there, and I'm going to be sending you a copy, Chris, so you can go over it as well.
And see, this is a book that's actually good enough where you don't want at the end of it, it's a book where you actually want to keep. It's not like a book where it's like, okay, I'm finished, now I'm going to use it for rolling papers or something. No, this is actually a good book that you want to read, and you want to tell your friends about. And it's like, get your friends a copy. But that's enough self-promoting for us. But I want to
because you read my other 2 books.
I want to get one last thought out there. Is that it's like a conspiracy realist. I just want to give, because it's the last few minutes, I want to give, because I told all the problems, like Alex Jones does, tell people problems, but don't give them solutions. So I'm going to give people some solutions of how they can avoid truthers like Alex Jones that just taint your mind with misinfo. I'm going to give them some solutions like truthers that actually put out good info. So check out Luke Radowski. Check out also Jesse Ventura for sure. He's the one that got one of his actual TV shows banned from TV. The FEMA camp episode got banned from TV. So there must have been some truth to that if they actually thought that was a threat to their, a secret that they had to keep secret, because they only played it one time, and then it's on YouTube though. Okay, and then check out Jesse Ventura. A lot of his stuff that he did. His TV show is no longer on air.
Several books. So get into the Ventura literature. Get to know him before you decide if you want to vote for him if he runs next year.
Oh yeah, it's like I have that book that you gave me. It's like I think I read a little bit. I was reading it when I was going
like car secret documents.
Yeah, I was reading going on the car trip. I remember reading about the Tuskegee experiments. It has just everything in there. I think the JFK files are in there too. There's all kinds of cool declassified documents. But I want to keep. We have a few minutes. I want to keep bringing up. One generally. He does. It's like I'll give him credit on his videos that are funny and comedic at times. But Mark Dice, at times is just when he talks about the working class, it's usually in a generally bad manner, and this guy's a rich white boy is how he acts. Also, Mark Dice seems to be kind of racist, and the main fact I have to go is that, again, he does the same thing Alex Jones does. He puts out anti-communism strong.
I tell you,
Okay,
if
so
Mark Dice came up to me, okay, me obviously not being an Obama supporter, being an educated person, I guarantee you he would not put that part of the video in his YouTubes, because he likes to show ignorant people. He likes to show like 9 ignorant persons and then 1 semi-intelligent person. But you're not going to tell me out of all those hundreds of people he talked to, he didn't find an intelligent person like you and me. There's some people like us, and he doesn't want to put those in the videos because he's a cherry picker. He's a theorist, just like Jones.
Yeah, that's why I don't like Dice too much. It's like it's and there's also a reason he's been on Fox News, I think, before, hasn't he? So
Mostly
Fox News. So again, they picked them. It's Jesse Ventura. I mean, when he got on MSNBC, I think one time, didn't he?
And then he was fooling them because he's very assertive. And I don't think they want him back on after that.
No, Jones, they would love to have him back on, have the absurd, have him make a fool out of himself again. They would love to see that, but they would not like to have Ventura actually educate people.
Yeah, they made Jones look like an idiot on CNN. Absolutely.
And they have commercial. They have commercials on there. You know, Ventura.
Oh, is it still up?
Again, yeah, we even put that in our little parody video about InfoWars. Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite parts. It's like it's not that big of a deal, sir. It's like, then why are our ratings dropping? It's like we could still own the alternative media. Bullshit. We already sold out to CNN. We have commercials there. And he throws down the pen. I think it's my favorite part right there. But and then and a few other people, there's a one, William Cooper was the guy's name. That he's the one that exposed that Bin Laden would be a patsy for 9/11 months before it even happened. Like he was a truther that kind of was. He was around before even Alex Jones was around, and then he gets killed in a standoff with police a few months later.
Bin Laden had his hand dirty as well. He was working for the CIA. I'm not saying he was behind 9/11, but certainly his hands were not clean either.
Yeah, but he was used. He was the patsy. Patsy usually works for the organization doing the it's like many different counts on what Lee Harvey Oswald was working for the FBI. And he got put as a patsy, even though he didn't actually want JFK assassination to happen.
He liked Kennedy. From what I know, he was trying to help, okay? So with Bin Laden, I don't think there was any good qualities about him.
No, it's different. It's a bit different. But I'm saying is that patsies usually work for the organization committing the crime or whatever, and then they put somebody like that as be the fall guy. And also, and there's also just many different out there. It's like many different independent researchers out there. I think to an extent, Jordan Maxwell, but it takes some of these truthers, you take them with a grain of salt, and always do your own research. We're nearing the end of the show, and that's part of that. Doing your own research is how you know the facts, know the reality, be a conspiracy realist, not a theorist. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Voice of Rebellion Radio tonight. Thank everybody who tuned in for both shows in our marathon. And this is your
one and no return, and nobody can stop it. Malcolm Little, when he knelt before Elijah Muhammad, the comet that killed the dinosaurs, changing the earth. They love to criticize, they always say I changed for the worse. Like prescription pills when you misusing them, nigga. The Templar Knights when they took Jerusalem, nigga, and figured out what was buried under Solomon's temple, Al-Aqsa. The name is not coincidental. I know too much, the government is trying to murder me. No coming back like cutting your wrists open vertically. How could the serpent be purposely put in charge of the country? Genetic engineered sickness spread amongst me. My people are so hungry that they attack without reason, like a fucking dog ripping off the hand that feeds them. Immortal technique is treason to the Patriot Act. So come and get me, motherfucker, cause I'm not coming back. This is the point from which I can never return, and if I back down now, then forever I'll